Let's pray together. Father in heaven, we're grateful for that song that reminds us that we can shine for you. We know it begins with the Holy Spirit coming into our hearts and lives and guiding us to be more like Jesus. And so right now we ask for the Holy Spirit to guide us as we open up your word right now. Help us to apply these lessons to our lives, and may we shine until Jesus comes. We pray it in his name. Amen. Every once in a while, a news story comes out about some heroes. Remember about in 2015, these heroes that were traveling from Amsterdam to Paris? 3 heroes. A gunman comes and begins to open fire, and these 3 heroes take this guy down. Eventually, the government of France declares that these guys were heroes, that they behaved in such a calm fashion to prevent many lives from being lost. At least that's what they believed. And when these 3 men were pulled aside and, as you can imagine, questioned in front of the news cameras, they were asked, "Why did you do it?" And what do you think their answer was? 3 Americans. The other hint is they're trained by our military. Why do you think they did it? Right thing to do? Something over here? Help others? The only acceptable response. What else? Save lives. Natural reaction. We're leaning more towards this one right here. They said it was adrenaline. They didn't even think about it. They just did it. And that type of response led to them saving lives. And God used that. And so they're like, we're not really heroes. We just did what we were supposed to do. It was adrenaline. And if you've been trained like a soldier, you would have just, basically the implication is you would have done the same. So they, as you can see the picture of them there, they were questioned at the U.S. Embassy. They were questioned at other places as well. And yet the question remains, what about those heroes who intervene in our lives and other people's lives where it's not adrenaline? Maybe they are trained to do it, but they're not reacting in a moment's time to just some instance where it's either put up or shut up. In other words, they have to think beforehand and prep themselves to go into that situation. I mean, the smoke all around us is a reminder of this, isn't it? This is taking place all the time. And you can say, well, they're getting paid. They're getting paid, some of them, $30,000 a month for 3 months during the year. The chiefs and all of that. You could say, well, they have good benefits. They have this, they have that. But I don't know about you, but how many of you would like to go into this? Have you seen the gear they wear? Have you seen... just imagine, I sweat a lot. I'm not wearing my jacket today. I'm tired of sweating out it all the time. Shasta Lake doesn't require me to wear a jacket anyway, so I'm coming right from there. But imagine as you're going through that smoke every day and as you're dealing with different problems of your own, there are individuals who are choosing to step into those situations. Yes, they're getting paid. Yes, you could say all kinds of things about their motivation, but deep down, some of them have the motivation of, you know what, I'm going in there to help somebody. I saw someone on the news, they were saying, I just want to be there for my neighbors. Firemen saying this. Maybe you know of individuals, even in your own areas, where the fires have struck recently or in the past, where they just stepped into that situation, whoever they are, and they chose to help. It wasn't adrenaline. It was an active choosing to step into that situation. We would call that, when you choose someone else over yourself, we would call that, biblically speaking, love. Not emotional love, not just pleasurable love. We would call it agape or a choosing love. Choosing you over themselves. Because think about it. If somebody gets killed in one of these situations, who's there for them? They have some chaplain services set up and all of that, but they're in that situation. Our officers are the same way. Some of you who work in medical professions, you're putting yourselves in harm's way. Some of you who are in other situations, you're placing yourselves in harm's way. So we think of the word hero, we typically think of this first story where people engage. But I'm saying, in some way or another, we are all heroes. We're making a choice to be involved in somebody's life. And so as we look at the different stories of the Bible, think about the story of Joshua. We've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again with you. Think about crossing the Jordan River because you have been told by the Lord to do so. Imagine being the spies who were sent across that river, and you were told, especially by the Lord, especially go to Jericho. And when you go to Jericho, you find Rahab, and you find someone who's searching for God and wanting God, and yet she's stuck in this place of darkness. You don't think Canaan was a place of darkness and then and there? I mean, do some research. Talk about child sacrifice. Talk about torturing people. Talk about treating people worse than property. Talk about all kinds of things happening in places like that. And people were attributing this to their gods. This is a religious thing. How would you feel if you were stuck in a place like that? And people who left, if in some of these situations, if you chose a different belief system, you could be killed. It's not just now in this day and age when people are doing this. We're talking about for many years this has taken place. A religious, political system is set up where you feel like your faith and your hope is being just suffocated. You know that feeling you get when it's a really busy week and there's so much stress and you kind of feel like something's weighing on you? Imagine feeling like that and mentally going numb. And you're longing for some kind of hope. And yet the hope is beyond that river. So the ones choosing, in a way, become the hero, but really it's the Lord who is the hero in this story. The one who chooses a group of people, very unlikely to be the heroes of the story and the heroes of the day, and he goes before these people. He parts the Red Sea, and now he's coming to, what does the Jordan River look like compared to a huge, giant Red Sea area? It's nothing. Nothing for the Lord. But yet, as we read the story, we find Joshua and them feel inadequate. And also others around them feel inadequate. Look at Joshua chapter 5, verse 1. So as the story tells us in the Bible in chapter 4, the priests put their feet in the water. Nobody else got their feet wet. Nobody got their feet wet. They went on dry ground, according to the text. After those priests put their feet in the water with the Ark of the Covenant, it parted and it went heaped up to the north side and it kind of just flowed out. And you know how when you drain a tub, just there goes the water down the tub? It just went right down towards the Salt Sea. And 600,000 plus women and children, 600,000 men plus women and children go across on dry ground. And of course, in the day of smartphones, they all got on their smartphones and we're zooming in from the top of Jericho and taking pictures of this in video, and they were putting it on YouTube, and word got around everywhere, right? And they even did a little selfie. Hey, look, they're coming across. No, they were fearful. Word got around, though. Can you imagine? Word gets all the way over, according to this text, to the sea, to the people along the shore. That takes a little bit of time to get from Jericho over to the shore. You got the routes you got to travel. Eventually, the messengers are going. Of course, some of them could outrun a deer after they tired it out and kill it. That was how some of these people were back then. But eventually, the word gets all the way over to the seacoast. And instead of being, wow, this is amazing God, we should serve this God, their hearts melted. This miracle that God did effectively neutralized the military threat of all the coastline people. They were not going to stand against this God. This God had actually defeated one of the most powerful armies of that day in Egypt. This God had allowed these Israelites to defeat giants. This God had parted the Red Sea. This God had sent plagues upon the land. This God appears, against their popular belief, appears to put his feet down wherever he wants. He's not just a little regional God over here in the mountains or a God down in the plains. Later on, the Philistines make the mistake of believing that he's just the God of the mountains, and they go and they fight and they get defeated, even in the plains. So they believed that this was an amazing God who could even cross over boundaries that they thought existed. No wonder they didn't want to go against him. Would you want to go against this God? I mean, he has fed over 1 million people in the wilderness for 40 years. Would you want to have your city laid siege by a God like that, who could feed his army forever? And meanwhile, you're trying to gather all this harvest crops before they get across the little Jordan River. That's your last barrier. And then imagine thinking about, well, that's really nothing over there compared to the Red Sea. And then if they get over here and their God doesn't like us and we don't listen, because they would extend, oftentimes in the book of Deuteronomy and other places, they would extend peace to people. If we don't accept peace, he's going to bring plagues upon us. I mean, boils are going to pop out everywhere. We're going to find that we're going to have all kinds of things in nature, hornets and everything. Anybody have hornet problems right now? I mean, they're just going around getting ready for the winter. Imagine hornets coming and invading you. Imagine all kinds of things taking place. This is a God who controls everything. He appears everywhere he goes, he controls everything. That's why they're in amazement. They're fearful. But yet, it says all the kings of the Amorites who were on the west side of the Jordan, all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that Jehovah had dried up the waters of the Jordan. They had a chance, didn't they? They had a chance, like Rahab, to accept this God. Because when she talked to the spies, she describes how we're fearful because of what God has done. Now he's done some more. Surely now they're all hearing about it. Now they have a choice, don't they? They have a choice to respond to this news that they're hearing. It could be good news or it could be bad news. That's the same thing with us. When we read the Word of God, we can take it as good news, especially if we're trying to follow God, or if we're reading it and it somehow leads us to a place where, my heart's not right with God, we can choose not to follow God, but you know what's going to happen? We'll be living in a kingdom of fear. If you're living in a kingdom of fear, and yet he offers mercy, then accept his mercy. If you don't like the fear, then accept his mercy. If you like the fear, then keep sticking your nose where it is in the Bible and say, and keep focusing on the fear and the fear and the fear, and your life will become very fearful. But if you would step back and realize he did all of these things, not to amaze them, but to appeal to them, then the Bible becomes an appeal to each one of us. Will you accept my mercy, is what God's saying. Imagine all the things you thought were going to give you security were gone. That's what they're going through. And meanwhile, the Israelites, and what I find amazing about that is that God uses the crossing of the Jordan River and the amazement and fear of the nations to slow down the nations from just invading and killing off the Israelites. Do you realize if all those armies united with the Hittites and the others and the Amorites and the seacoast villages, they could have come over and wiped Israel off the planet? They could have. But God, through his miracles, also had mercy on his people. Why? Because as you look in Joshua chapter 5, all the men had just been circumcised. And if you've read your Bible through every once in a while, you'll come across stories where circumcision has taken place, and that slows that army down. That disables that army for a time period until those men can heal, because now they're in a weak point, aren't they? And yet God intervenes even in their weakness, and through the events of the miracle that just took place, he gives them time. He allows them to heal before they have to face the enemies around them. Isn't that merciful? So he uses what appears to be fearful and dreadful and all kinds of things to the nations as a time of mercy for his people. Isn't he doing the same thing today? These fires, people, and these disasters, and I'm not saying, and I'm not in any way diminishing if they've affected you in some way, but they are really a time of mercy. Because I can tell you right now, when these disasters keep getting worse, and Revelation says the sun will get a lot hotter. I know we don't like the word climate change. Some people don't like global warming. Let's face it, it's going to be global boiling before we're done here. And right now is the time where we have a time of mercy to take a message to people. That insert in your bulletin is talking about you getting your heart ready. That straight to the heart insert that you had in your bulletin, please fill it out. If you feel like there's something in your heart that needs to be healed, this is the time to do it. Because I don't want you inviting people to the appearing meetings or praying for people, unless it really is something in your heart. And I don't really want to do it either unless it's something really in my heart. So do what it takes. This is a time of mercy. I don't know about you, but once they shut things down, religiously speaking and politically, and if you want a Signs of the Times moment, I'll give one to you. When the Johnson Amendment was basically reversed, we had a small union of church and state that will lead to a greater marriage later on. Let's just be frank about it. Do you realize that on your bulletin there, go back to the back of your bulletin. And I know I'm off script, but this is the way it's going to be. It says back here, your church your church budget back there, annual amount, that's covering maintenance of your building, that's covering insurance, that's covering outreaches, that's covering all kinds of stuff, that's covering staff salaries, a couple of staff salaries, that's covering all kinds of things. $56,000 for the year. And we've shaved it down from $70-some thousand in the last 4 years. But according to the federal government now, you could take 25% of that as a church and vote to support a candidate. That's what's happened. When the Johnson Amendment was basically done away with, I can stand up here in the pulpit right now and tell you who to vote for. I can name a political candidate. That has taken place in the last year and a half. If you haven't figured it out, that is a major step. That is a major step towards religious coercion. Revelation 13 says that they will use force to enact worship at the end of time. So let me ask you something. Maybe I shouldn't say the name, but when you read a candidate's name and it says American Independent Party underneath it, what do you need to do? You need to go look up American Independent Party. A lot of you guys voted for a religious right organization. I didn't. But I will say this, and I'm not here to say it was a bad choice or good choice. I think there's some good decisions being made because I can see economically some things that are positive. But think about it. If someone has an allegiance to a religious right organization, then when that organization devotes they can devote 100% of their budget, but when a huge church of 20,000 devotes your budget into one candidate one time, and your whole budget into another candidate another time, and another time, and another time, and another time, next thing you know, churches are united with the state. And the state is going to solicit the churches because now they have a lot of money that can come their way. That is the time we are living in. So when I say it was a time of mercy for Joshua and them, and now we're living in a time of mercy, this is clearly a time of mercy. And all of you must become ministers. All of you. If you're not already, you've got to be one. You've got to be able to share the Word of God. You've got to be able to be that one who stands in the gap. You've got to be able to be the one who shines like a light. You've got to be able to be the one who, when someone comes asking questions, you can show them hope. Because I can tell you right now, it's going to get darker. I was reading the Geneva Bible. Ellen McCarty gave me a copy. Bless her heart. She prays for you guys and me every day. Every day. This is some of our powerful prayer warriors are the ones that are homebound, and we go visit them as elders, and we think we're ministering to them, but they minister to us. And she gives me this Bible, and I'm reading through it, and it has a history in there of the Bible, and it's describing the times of the Geneva Bible, 1599, the times that it came about. And as you read that history, you realize that Bible literally had to be printed in London because the church wanted to control the virgins that would go out to the people. So even though I'm holding this Bible, it's really from the 1590s, which they've made it more modern English, there's a lot of history behind that Bible. Your 1611 version of the Bible was also state-sponsored. So you got to ask yourself, not that that's a bad thing, because we need to have it in our own language. What would happen if that happened again? Where certain versions had to be approved, where certain articles had to be approved, where certain pieces of literature had to be approved, all of this. And so, though God can work through those situations, He's going to rely on each one of us to be the ones who will stand in the gap at that time. Joshua and them weren't hopeless. I mean, think about it. God had just protected them at their weakest moment. They also had overcome where others had failed, because even the act of circumcision itself was a reminder that there had been a whole generation who died off in the wilderness, and now we are the new ones. This is a new start. The Lord named that place Gilgal. And I thought, well, that's really not that significant, is it? Gilgal. But it means this idea of rolled away. Rolled away. By the heap of waters, it was literally rolled away. Their shame and all of that of not crossing into the promised land was rolled away. They were given a new opportunity, a new time of mercy, a new time to extend mercy to the nations around them. That's where we're at. That is where we are at. And we find during that time of mercy, they celebrated the Passover, which we commemorated last week through the Lord's Supper. And they celebrated by eating the old grain, the grain from previous, and then God provided for them the new land. Go to Joshua 5, verse 10. You can read it on the screen, or you can follow in your translation. The sons of Israel camped in Gilgal. They kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho. And they ate the old grain of the land on the next day after the Passover. Unleavened cakes and roasted grain in the same day. Verse 12, and the manna stopped on the next day. We are living in a time when the manna is going to stop. Have you held revival seminars across this country, Revelation seminars? I've held them in towns and places, and I can tell you right now, when you get out there and you hold a revival seminar, and you all need to all prepare to do that, you go out there, and there are a lot of people who don't know anything about this Bible. That is sad. You ask them to find a book, and they don't know where it's at. You try to ask them a question about a simple story, and they tell you a story that doesn't even exist in the Bible. This type of thing. And frankly, one of the last stands for Protestantism, and I mean protesting Rome, and I mean protesting darkness, and I mean protesting anti-Bible things, has traditionally been the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But the problem is, our General Conference has done a study, and we're not studying the book like we used to. We're not spending those hours like we used to. We're barely spending minutes. They come up with these devotional books because people aren't reading their Bibles, and they're not reading the different writings of our history, and so they put them in this devotional book, hoping you'll read a little bit. That whole initiative, Revived by His Word, was established because we weren't reading our Bibles. And so, think about that. We have the manna every day here. Jesus said, give us this day our daily bread. He said, I am the bread of life. From one cover to the other, it's all about Him. How do we face the beast at the end of time? How do we face false Christ and false prophets? We know the true Christ. We know the true messenger. We know the true prophet, Jesus Christ Himself. Daily. I'm a broken record, guys. I'm a broken record that keeps playing the same tune that says, read, read, read. It's your only safeguard. When we go into homes and people are being harassed by demons or we are possessed by demons, I can tell you right now, that's the first thing that goes, is their daily Bible reading. And we have to reestablish that, because if we sweep the house clean, if we anoint in Jesus' name, if we have fasted and prayed and the demons flee, not because of us. I tell you right now, we feel unworthy. I mean, do you feel worthy going up against a demon that can literally take you up and throw you all the way to the back of the sanctuary right now? I don't feel worthy. And so we have to pray, we have to fast, and then the first thing we try to do is figure out, where are the reading patterns? Are they spending that time with God? Are they spending time in the Word of God? Are they spending time in nature study? Are they spending time? What's going on with their relationship with God? Because there, right after they crossed into Canaan, the manna stopped. You know, we're going to have this now, and we're going to look back fondly at this when we see Jesus face to face. We're going to thank Him, because this isn't everything that happened, is it? This isn't not everything that happened historically, and this is not everything that happened in the words in the life of Jesus. John himself says, there are many other things I could write, and so he has given us this out of mercy. He has told us, this is what will help you along the journey. And then imagine you have taken that time every day, and then you see him. And his presence during those times now meets reality. That's powerful. I mean, think about them. They go into Canaan, they start eating those huge, gigantic clusters of grapes and that they had to carry, and they start seeing the pomegranates and the figs, huge figs, but then they remember back. Remember when we had the manna? And we got tired of it, and then we asked for the quail, and it came out of our noses. We ate so much of it, but we had that manna again, and then remember how it quit. It's obviously important to them to note it because they noted it in the text. It quit. Something now is missed in their hearts. They look back fondly at all those times the Lord had preserved them and helped them. And then it says, they ate of the land of Canaan. Our time is coming soon, and we will quit eating of the manna, and we will literally be with Jesus and eat of the fruit of his land. But until then, we must eat the manna. Gilgal is an interesting location. If you're in Jericho, you can look out and see the Jordan River. You can see the tree line. But Gilgal would have been to the east of Jericho. So my wife and I were standing up on the hill there, and we looked out, and he said that's where the Israelites came from. Down there in that little flat valley area was Gilgal, the place where they heaped up all these foreskins. And he said, that's a grody sight. If you've never been to a circumcision, it's not pretty, okay, even with a child. But that's what happened. This reproach was left behind. And Gilgal, here's another map. You can imagine what lies beyond Gilgal and Jericho. All these other towns. So Gilgal was a place of preparation. Gilgal was a place of humbling. Gilgal was a place where you would recognize God's presence is already amongst us. Because if we don't have it now, we're not going to be able to take the land. Look at all those towns beyond Jericho. Look at a map on the internet. Say, type in Joshua's battles, and you'll pull up a whole bunch of battles. If he did not have the presence of God as he began that whole journey, he would have lost. They all would have lost. We know what happened the last time they tried to take the land without God's presence. Bitterly defeated. And so go to Micah chapter 6. Micah chapter 6. What other things were we supposed to learn at Gilgal? Micah chapter 6. It's an interesting chapter. God is pleading with his people Israel. These are people of faith. This is years after Jericho. He's pleading with them to return to him, and he cites Gilgal in here. Micah chapter 6. You can read verses 1 and 2 if you like. I'm going to start at verse 3. O my people, what have I done to you? God asks. How have I wearied you? Testify against me. For I brought you up from the land of Egypt. I redeemed you from the house of bondage. I sent before you the leaders, right? Moses, Aaron, Miriam. Verse 5, O my people, remember now what Balak king of Moab counseled, and what Balaam the son of Beor answered him. You go read that. Basically, he couldn't curse God's people. They were uncursable because they were God's people and they were following him until later on they got into sexual morality. From Acacia Grove to Gilgal, that you may know the righteousness of God. That's interesting. And what Balaam the son of Beor answered him, from Acacia Grove to Gilgal, God had led them. Remember Acacia Grove? That was where those two spies were from. What is God saying to Micah? I led them all the way. From Egypt, from Acacia Grove to Gilgal, beyond. There was not a time when I did not lead them. Every victory you see was because of God. That you may know the righteousness of the Lord. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Who ever did that anyway in the Bible? Who even attempted to do that? Abraham. So he's telling you, it wasn't even then. It was even further back. Further back, I have been leading my people. Keep going. It says, he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. All of this was supposed to have taken place from Egypt to Acacia Grove to Gilgal. That was the whole point. Saying, God, we are nothing without you. We need your presence in our lives, or we lose and we are lost. And so that's what Micah tells us. The prophet tells us their goal was to be walking humbly with their God. And so Joshua, as he's standing there, and he's coming across the plain, and after the circumcision and the healing has taken place, he looks up and he sees Jericho on the hill there. And as he looks up, and how do I know that? You look at the text. He says in Joshua 5, verse 13, when Joshua was beside Jericho. So it's within his view. And notice the focus on visual here. This whole text, from this point on, we see a visual. He's looking, he's beholding, he's seeing. He lifts up his eyes, because you would have to look up to see Jericho from the plain. And then, that's scene number one, right? He's looking up, he's seeing, and then behold. If you are standing at a campfire with your kids and telling a story, or church family on a Vespers night, you're like, and then this happened, right? That's the exciting part of the story. So he's telling, going along, it's telling you, and you can imagine someone telling the story orally. That's what they did at first. And so they're describing Joshua. He's looking, and behold, that's a key. In the Hebrew language, it's clear. In the English, they use words that we kind of just walk over sometimes. It's saying, see, look. The next scene, with this man in front of him, his sword drawn in his hand, Joshua goes to him and says to him, are you for us or for our foes? So his humbling begins as he looks at Jericho, and now this man appears. It's already kind of begun, but now he's really tested, because now I got to lead these people to this city. I don't feel worthy of it, and now here's this person standing there. So if you look up at Jericho, this is a rubble picture of Jericho. This is what I took when I was there. It's up. You can see those people at the top there. That's how tall you would be. See where that kind of like that I don't know, that billboard up there, or that display is? That display is as tall as I am. Okay, that sign up there is as tall as I am. So you can imagine how small you would feel if this city was really built up the way it was back in Joshua's day. How are you going to take this? And you get through the inner wall, and you got this next wall that's slick, and so your soldiers will slip and fall, and then they'll be shot with the bows and arrows, and they'll be speared, and they'll be rocked, and it just seems impossible. That's what he's looking at. And then he sees this soldier. And he asks the soldier, whose side are you on? So he's getting ready to pull his sword and to deal with this soldier. That's kind of courageous for a moment there, isn't it? Which side are you on? And which side is God on? Jericho or Israel? Neither. The Lord himself says, no. That's the only response you get regarding that question. No. It kind of gives you a picture of God there, just that one word. Is God against the people we're trying to share the light of the gospel with? No. Are we better than them? No. Could be sometimes they're better than us. No. God is not against those individuals we think of as maybe enemies. God is not against the ones we think of as just worldly or whatever you want to call it. He's not against them. He wants to save all of them. That's his goal. If you doubt that, then what about Rahab in the city? That really is against our thinking. If God really wanted to destroy the whole city without any survivors, he would have done it. Look what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. So he wants people to be saved. He's not against Jericho. He's not against the people of Canaan. He's given them times of mercy. And so the answer is no. I have come as the commander of the army of Jehovah. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and he worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? He falls before this one, and in his presence, which is what we should be doing every day, Lord, what would you have your servant to do? Ask me for a decision right now. As a pastor, I may have to think of a response and I feel like I have to respond to you. I'm not going to. Come at me with a question. Sometimes I'll have to say, I'm sorry. I got to pray about that. Why? Because that's what people who worship God do. You got your whole schedule ahead of you. Some of you work at the hospital. Some of you work at different other places, stores and all kinds of different backgrounds here. Some of you have worked in the past and you're retired now, but you remember those schedules. And you got this schedule before you there. And you got all these things to do besides that schedule at home. And you got things you want to do at church. And you got things you want to do in the community. It gets longer and longer and longer. And finally you have to ask the question, Lord, what would you have me to do? And he may just go like that. Or he may say, you can do it all. You're going to do it all, but you're not going to do it today. That's a spirit of worship. When we come into the presence of God and we're spending that time with him and we're reading that text and we're saying, Lord, what would you have me to do? I read these words. What do you say to your servant? And the commander of Jehovah's army said to him, take your shoe off your foot. All right, people, take your shoe off your foot. Does that mean anything to you? Like last week, we took our shoes off, right? And we had a communion service. We had the foot washing. Is that what we're talking about here? Spirit of service? In a way, we are. Humbleness. Remember Ruth? Remember the story of Boaz? I've talked to you about this before. Remember how they take the shoe off and it's handed over, and with it basically the land and the marriage is all set into his hands, into Boaz's hands. Basically the person was saying, I have no claim here. You say, well, it didn't say that. That's like Moses. Moses, he had to take his shoes off. Yeah, exactly. He had to take his shoes, plural, off. Don't you think Joshua knows that story? He obviously knows the story. And God says, take your shoe off your foot. Singular. In other words, you need to turn everything over to me. You need to humble yourself. That land is my promise. That land is my fulfillment of the promise. It's not yours. It's not your task to worry about. It's mine. Turn it over to me. What is God telling you to turn over to him in your life? Could be all kinds of things. If you look over here in Exodus, Moses said, I will turn aside now and see, there's that behold idea, this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when Jehovah saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. Kind of like Joshua, right? Here's your servant. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Difference in the story. Maybe it's just for a brief moment difference, but the same outcome. Humbling yourself and saying, Lord, I am not worthy. I'm handing this all over to you. Combine the two stories, that's what we get. And so Joshua recognizes the Lord, how God has arranged those events, how God is going to be the one that delivers the promised land into his hand. And then that presence, that promise of God going with him, that makes all the difference. When you got to face that situation, and I know some people who face situations of standing up for what they believe from the Bible. When you got to face that situation, isn't it good to know that maybe there's somebody who can come beside you like a friend? Isn't it good to know that you're not alone? Isn't it good to know that in the dark recesses of the night experience that you're facing, that God is right there walking with you? I mean, if a shepherd will hear the sheep cry in the night and go out and check it out with a flashlight, isn't God interested in your situation? He doesn't have to sleep like I do. And then, I got to go out, see what's going on. Go zipping around the yard, have a gun ready to go in case I need it. God cares a whole lot more than that. And so he's telling Joshua, he's telling them, Moses before that, I am the ultimate one who you have to trust. Where else do we see in the Bible a mark, a lamb, our shame being rolled away? and a situation that would go from death to life. Joshua is reminding us constantly of the cross. Constantly of the cross. I mean, Jesus' own name is the same as Joshua's name. He's humbling himself. He's being wounded for us. He removes the reproach. In fact, you find Paul eventually equates baptism with circumcision, that circumcision basically is nothing compared to baptism. Look at Colossians. And here's Jesus' Moses figure, the greatest leader of them all. And this is exactly what happens. The story of Joshua is our story today. There's no difference other than what our response may be. You've got the mark on a hill, Jesus dying on the cross, lamb, and by the way, he was slain during the Passover, just like we had the Passover in Joshua's day. He overcomes where they fail. We find even the tomb itself couldn't hold him. That stone is rolled away, just like their shame and everything, their reproach was rolled away. And then Jesus says, I'm going to be with you always. He gives us his personal presence. Do you know what brings reverence? I hear that being talked about sometimes. We need to have reverence here, and I agree with that. We need to be respectful, not running into each other, not knocking each other down. So I got to watch. My kids have lots of energy. I got to kind of calm them down sometimes. And some of you all talk about things in here you shouldn't probably, right? In the whole building. But really, reverence doesn't begin in a building, because you are the temple of God. I am the temple of God. Reverence begins right here. So if I come here and I make myself up to be somebody who I'm not, that's not reverent. If I come here and become a domineering person and get after maybe somebody for something that's really none of my business, the Holy Spirit's business, it's one thing to hold someone accountable. It's another thing to be the Holy Spirit. Then I'm irreverent. I'm irreverent then. If I'm a different person here than I am at home. It's like the old German professor told me, reverence is a 7-day-a-week matter, not a 7th-day-of-the-week matter. And so as I think of Jesus being in my life every day, that's really where it has to begin. If I want to come here and be a blessing to you, and you want to be a blessing to me, we want to be a blessing to each other, it begins with Jesus every day. And then he says, I am coming back. Present tense. We've heard this, I've said this over and over again. It's so amazing, the words that he uses. Present tense means whatever faces you today, like right now, it included everything that faced you yesterday that is kind of on your mind and keeps you up at night. That kind of, your mind kind of keeps going at times. It's everything that you're going to face tomorrow when you face it, he says, I am coming back right then. I am right there in the midst of it. And he said, I am with you always. So the story of Joshua, when those nations all around were in amazement, really that's what our response should have been every day of our lives here. We are in amazement of God. We want to serve this God. We want to be like Rahab and follow this God. And every day we eat his body by faith. You're like, yeah, you're cannibals, aren't you? They thought the first century Christians were cannibals because they talked about eating the body of Jesus. They talked about living daily on his word. And so daily we stand on holy ground. Daily then we can be those heroes, if you will, in the story. Because the hero is in our story. But until then, until that happens, this is just a bunch of fairy tales if it doesn't take root in your life and my life. People won't believe it. It's an unbelievable story unless somehow it has changed your life and my life. If you don't think so, talk to someone who has never been a Christian before. There's a lot of stories in here that don't make any sense scientifically, that don't make any sense maybe even socially. But if you know the story and it somehow has done something for you, then you can speak out of that experience and you can share, well, no, actually this is true because this is what's happened. That's the power of this story. And is this all there is ever that we're going to know? No. Out of mercy, he's given us this amount. And so we will be taking part of this manna every day until he actually comes with us. I remember, I've got all kinds of stories I could share, but as I think of his peace right now and praying for people that are in the midst of all of that, really, we're praying for this situation, But we should really be praying also for the coming huge fire that's coming. Our God is a consuming fire. And we want everybody to be saved. And that's why his presence in your life makes you the hero. Makes you the one that can go to people who are facing this type of thing, who are facing that job issue, who are facing that marital issue, who are facing whatever it may be, because if they can face these issues with God that are happening now, then they won't have to face the ultimate fire that's coming. And so as I think about God's presence, it's a daily presence that we need. Because soon and very soon we're going to cross over the Jordan, and we're not going to have the manna anymore. We're going to have Jesus right in front of us, which was what this represented. And we'll look back and we'll say, wow, this was a nice, beautiful time with him. Look what he used those words to get me through. Won't that be worth it? Father in heaven, we're grateful that you tell us to take off our shoe, to hand over to you anything that would distract us or betray us or cause us to claim anything as ours. And we are handing it over to you now in your presence and asking that you can deal with those situations. You can deal with whatever is at hand. You can give us that humbleness that Joshua, that Moses, that Abraham, that all those individuals had, that ultimately Jesus had. Guide us each day to say, Lord, here I am. What would you have me to do? Thank you so much for your love and your presence. In Jesus' name.